Good morning, dear students. Today, we are going to continue the chapter protein synthesis. We have started this protein synthesis in the previous class, this topic. This topic is a continuous process, continuous one, which requires the initial understanding of few important events. What are they? Synthesis of an mRNA. And we know that this is being synthesized depending upon the gene which has been present in the DNA, present in the nucleus. Then there is also the mRNA is need to come into the cytosol. The protein synthesis is occurring in ribosomes. Important sentence to remember. The protein synthesis occurs in ribosomes in cytosol of eukaryote cells. And in bacteria, well, within the cell, because there is no nucleus, the whole thing is protoplasm. So there it occurs. Then the most important ancillary apparatus required are tRNA in the cytoplasm. You need amino acids. For the protein synthesis, you need amino acids. You need energy for driving this whole process. And the housing the protein synthesis is ribosome. And then containing ribosomal RNA as well as various proteins, not less than 10 proteins. Many proteins, more than 10 proteins. Then this is a gross view. Gene. This is the gene. This is the coding one. Code in the same DNA. This is mRNA. And this is a polypeptide chain that is being produced. The gross diagram. Expression of a gene into a protein. This is the process. This is also called as central dogma of Crick. We have already understood the tRNA, how it is, and what is the molecular anatomy of tRNA, and the person who has invented Robert Foley. And this transfer RNA, what is the most important thing to remember? That it has amino acyl terminal, anticodon arm, DHU, dihydrouracil arm. This is a psi, otherwise pseudo-pyridine arm, and a small loop in between these two arms. And mRNA, 333 nucleotides are signaling one amino acid. That is what we understood, and that is what has been discovered. And this is what is called as, well, the tRNA was initially isolated by, that is, from the cytoplasm, that the methionine tRNA is being isolated, purified by Paul Berg. And as I said in the previous sentence, that every 3 nucleotides are going to signal one amino acid. So this is what they called as the hypothesis, the concept of genetic code. Very important one. The concept of genetic code. And the genetic code has, that is, this is the genetic code. Every 333 nucleotides will be signaling, will be directing one amino acid. But from the mRNA, even though the signaling direction is there, it cannot be directly called and add one amino acid to another amino acid to another amino acid. It cannot link directly. mRNA cannot link the amino acids. So in between, there is a lot of process that is being there. And what that process, this genetic code is deciphered by the Marshall Nirenberg and the associated Mathai. We learned now in the eukaryotes, there are about 31 tRNA species. And we know the maximum number of amino acids for protein synthesis are 20. But whereas as a 333 nucleotides codes for an amino acid, that is a concept we have discovered, then there are possibility of permutations, 64 permutations from the possible 4 nucleotides in the RNA or DNA. And out of them, 3 codes are being signaling for stop process. They are called as 3 codons are called as stop codons. And then the gene for alanine tRNA is being invented by, or rather, it is being done. It is being synthesized in the laboratory of Hargobind Khurana. Hargobind Khurana, an Indian-born American scientist, and who got a Nobel Prize. And another example of the same is that the process, the transcriptional complex, deciphering the whole process of transcription by Venkatraman, another Indian-born scientist, got the Nobel Prize. And possible genetic codes that can be maximum possible genetic codes are being depicted in this chart. And you say, see, these two are coding for phenylalanine. So we learned various concepts of genetic code, that is the salient features of genetic code. And that is, the genetic code is a triplet code. Every 3 nucleotides code for one amino acid. It is a non-overlapping. The mRNA genetic code cannot be overlapped. Once first 3 are finished, it starts with 4 only. It will not start with again 2 or 3. So there is no overlapping. There is no punctuation. Once it is started translating, genetic code started working, that is in the process of translation, it will not stop anywhere. It has to complete the protein molecule synthesis. It will not wait for any ultrasecond even. And then there is a concept of degeneracy. There are many genetic codes. There are many, or rather more than one code for a single amino acid. A single amino acid. Codes are 1, 2, 3, or 4, even may be present, like an amino acid like serine. And hence, the possible tRNAs are only 31. And mostly, a single tRNA, mostly, only few of them are having double. And mostly they have single tRNA. That means anticodon is a single anticodon. But this single anticodon is being base paired with the 3 nucleotides that are being present in the code. And the first, second nucleotides in the code are very, very strictly base pairs with the anticodon first and second nucleotides. The third nucleotide or base, bar base, is not rigidly base paired, and that is what is called as the degeneracy. Even though that is also called as the third one, as it is not strictly following the base pairing rule, and hence it is called as opuls. It is opuls, and the process is called opuling. And then the unambiguous, even though this process is there, a single amino acid, a codon can code for only that amino acid. So here, an amino acid can have many codes, but here a code can code only one amino acid, not more than one amino acid. And hence it is not ambiguous, there is no ambiguity in it. And hence the code has no ambiguity, and hence it is unambiguous. And it is near universal or nearly universal. In all the species, it is the same, but in the mitochondria, the codes are little bit altered, Forget about this. Universal. So these are all the classic features of genetic, salient features of genetic code. And having concept on this, now we will go to the process of translation. Protein synthesis mainly a process of translation. In the protein synthesis, we need to learn about the other RNAs also. But once we have the acquaintance with the other RNAs and the whole concept, then the main mechanism of protein synthesis is by way of translational process. What is translation? mRNA is producing a protein, or a protein is synthesized from the direction of mRNA in the ribosomes. So mRNA is translated from 5' to 3' end. The direction is always 5' to 3' end. And translation is a cytoplasmic process. This is the important thing. So translation occurs where? In the cytoplasm. Where? In the ribosomes. The ribosomes does present in the cytoplasm, and hence it is a cytoplasmic process. The direction is 5' to 3'. Right. Next, in the polypeptide chain synthesis, the first amino acid is the amino terminal one. It becomes the amino terminal one. So once mRNA starts synthesizing, the first amino acid that is being incorporated into that complex is going to be amino terminal amino acid. And the last one is going to be the chain growth is from the amino terminal to the carboxy terminal, and the last amino acid is going to be the carboxy terminal amino acid. So that is what we learned in the primary conformation of proteins. In the primary conformation of proteins, you have an amino terminal end, we have a carboxy terminal end. On the left side is amino terminal, and the right side is a carboxy terminal. That is the primary sequence 1, 2, 3, and up to, say, in the beta globin gene 146 amino acids. So in a particular protein, some number of amino acids does present, and it starts from 1, 2, 3. And these numbers shall not alter anywhere, even in among 146 amino acids. Even if one single amino acid is going to be altered, then the protein function is going to be altered. What is the example for that? Sickle cell hemoglobin. Sickle cell hemoglobin. What is the problem in it? The red blood cell is going to deform when it is deoxygenated. Once oxygen is removed from the hemoglobin, which has been present in the RBC, in that condition, in that deoxygenated condition, the sickle cell hemoglobin is going to polymerize together and deforms the whole cell architecture. And then it is what is going to happen? It is going to become the sickle cell, a sickle-like cell. And this is called as a sickle, and the disease is finally sickle cell anemia, because sickle cells cannot serve the function. Not only serve the function properly, they cannot sustain in the circulation, and they are going to be broken very fast. The life is going to be very shortened, and they are going to be at certain circumstances, and oxygen attacks on the when oxygen producing, liberating oxidants, oxidants are circulating in the blood, maybe there's some drugs, then they are going to attack the hemoglobins and then the RBCs, and then RBCs are going to be hemolyzed. So sickle cell at times goes to crisis, and or even it continuously broken down faster, and there is going to be anemia and then a crisis. So this is a disease. And the whole reason, all the problem is in the sixth position of the beta globin chains. They're supposed to be glutamic acid. But what is going to happen is, instead of glutamic acid, a valine molecule, amino acid will come. Why? Because there is a genetically, there is a transitional process occurring. What is transition and transversion? It is a component of mutation. Mutation, two types. A point mutation, rather. One nucleotide instead of a proper nucleotide, a different nucleotide is coming and occupying there in the synthesis of a replication of a DNA. So then there is an altered gene, and because of that altered gene, one nucleotide is misplaced, and it is called as a point mutation. And point mutations are two types: transition and transversions. Transition is a purine is being replaced by another purine mistakenly, whereas in the transversion, a purine is being replaced by a pyrimidine or vice versa. So now this, because of this change, because of this mutation process, the gene is altered, mRNA is altered, genetic code is altered. Because of code is altered, the amino acid at that point supposed to come, the glutamic acid became changed to valine, and valine is there incorporated into the complete chain, and the globin, instead of 6th position glutamic acid, valine has come, and the whole property of the protein altered. Glutamic acid is being an rather the water soluble or hydrophilic, whereas valine is hydrophobic. Not only hydrophobic materials, like what are the hydrophobic materials? The lipids. So it gets, instead of water soluble nature, it gets a fatty nature to that globulin protein, and hence it is sticky and forms polymers, and then because of formation of polymerization of hemoglobin to one to another, the molecule gets polymerized, and there are going to be chain formations, and then it is what it is, sickle cell deformity. So the sequence of amino acids has to be strictly followed, means mRNA should be proper, means gene must be normal, there should not be any mutations. Then the translation process, it is can be divided into various steps. The whole translation is synthesis of a protein from mRNA. mRNA producing a protein in ribosome is translation. And the process of translation is divided into various important steps, large steps. The first one is activation of amino acid. So what is required for the synthesis of proteins? The amino acids are synthesized. Where are these amino acids present? In the cellular cytoplasmic universe. So from there, where is this translation process? The house of the translation, the home of the translation is ribosome. So to the ribosomes, somebody need to bring all 20 amino acids. So that means first and foremost, the amino acids richly, or at least they should present enough in cytoplasm. That means we must have a protein food from where amino acids can be supplied into the cell. The first step is activation of amino acid. Amino acids are activated. How do they activated? They activated and joined to their respective tRNA, transfer RNA molecules. Transfer RNA. We have 20 amino acids. We have more than 20, about 31 tRNAs. But mostly one particular amino acid will be having one specific tRNA. So you have all the tRNAs are not that simple. They are all differing minutely. They can identify their corresponding amino acid. So valine is recognized by tRNA for valine. Glutamic acid is recognized by tRNA for glutamic acid. So methionine is recognized by the tRNA of methionine. Mind you, methionine is having 2 tRNA molecules. Methionine is having 2 tRNA molecules. The purpose you will be knowing little later. So activation. So how the amino acid can join the tRNA? Where do the tRNA joins? We learned in the previous lecture that there is a terminal called as in the 3' terminal of the tRNA. You have CCA sequence. In that CCA sequence, the last base is or nucleotide is adenine. And this adenine, there is a free hydroxyl group that is being present. A free hydroxyl group is present. And amino acid is having an amino group and a carboxyl group. So this carboxyl group and this hydroxyl group, which is being present in the adenine nucleotide, they are joined together by a bond, ester bond, COO, C double bond O and a single bond O, COO ester bond. So this with the ester bond, an amino acid is linked to their corresponding tRNA molecule with the help of energy, GTP. So with the help of energy, so ATP energy is required for this particular process, and that process is activation of amino acid. This is one gross step that is needed. And secondly, initiation of translation. Initiation of translation. In eukaryotes and prokaryotes, there is a little difference. But we are mostly interested in eukaryotes, and hence we go for first discussion of eukaryote translation process. And that is the initiation in the eukaryotes. How does it occur? Well, before that, a fundamental concept. You have mRNAs, you have tRNAs, you have RNAs. They are also called, and for each one to be synthesized. Where from they are synthesized? All the RNAs from again the DNA in the nucleus. The DNA is having genes which can produce mRNA molecules, produces the proteins and produces traits, various functions in the organism. That is one side. And other side, for the synthesis of protein, you need ribosomes and ribosomal RNAs, and you need the transferring molecules of amino acid, tRNA molecules, and they are the RNA molecules, and they are also have to be synthesized. So these RNAs, tRNAs, these rRNAs are also synthesized from the parent DNA at different site. So that particular site of DNA which is producing mRNAs is coding 1, whereas that particular DNA which is producing the rRNAs and tRNAs are non-coding ones. They are called as non-coding sequences. Now, and hence each type of RNA in eukaryotes is synthesized by what is the enzyme that synthesizes the RNA polymerization of one nucleotide to another nucleotide. So joining one nucleotide to another nucleotide with the direction anyway, but it is the joining. And how are they joined? Phosphodiester linkages. And what is that enzyme which can form these phosphodiester linkages? RNA polymerase. How does it joins one nucleotide to another nucleotide? By the dictation of the gene. That is the DNA sequence. At the genetic gene level. So now, having all these concepts, now the polymerases, DNA-dependent RNA polymerases that are synthesizing the mRNA needed for the direction to be given to the protein synthesis. mRNA which gives the direction to protein synthesis. That particular group of RNA polymerases are called as RNA polymerases 2, Roman letter 2, also called as RNA polymerase D. Whereas the rRNA, that is ribosomal RNA producing RNA polymerases, they are grouped as RNA polymerases group 1 are also called as group A. And then the tRNA molecules are all synthesized from another species of RNA polymerases, and they are called as RNA polymerases group Latin 3. 3 are also called as group C. So A, B, C are 1, 2, 3 polymerases 1, polymerases 2, polymerases 3, RNA polymerase 1, 2, 3, correspondingly producing the rRNAs, mRNAs, and tRNAs. So there is a specificity. There is no confusion. There is no confusion in the genetic processes. These processes. So in the initiation now, we'll go the proper initiation step is a very, very important and a large step. Then the explanation of lot of explanation and not completely been understood, but we have understood a lot about initiation. Well, initiation. In the initiation, there are again sub-steps. The first step is dissociation of ribosome. So we need ribosome. The whole process is been occurring in the ribosome. So initially, without having all these things, the ribosome, empty ribosome, is available somewhere in the cytosol. And that empty ribosome is what is the character of that ribosome? It is ATS. That is what we learned in the previous class. That is, in the previous class, we learned that is the empty ribosome. The ribosomes of the mammalian system are having ATS, whereas in the prokaryotes, in the microbes, it is 70S. What is this? S stands for Svedberg units. What is this Svedberg unit? Why? How is it? Where from it has come? These cellular fractions. These cellular, once a cell is completely disrupted, and depending upon their masses, whether it is nucleus, whether it is mitochondria, whether it is ribosomes or cytosol membranes, they can be separated by a sophisticated technique called as ultracentrifugation. Ultracentrifugation. This is a physical technique or physics invention. After that invention, we could able to separate all these subcellular fractions. Separation is possible. So for our experiments became easier when this ultracentrifugation has come. This is gradient centrifugation. Gradient centrifugation. The author or the inventor of this one is Svedberg. Svedberg, a Swedish one, Svedberg. And on his name, the ultracentrifugation, suppose you want to tell the sugar, and it will be expressed in milligrams per deciliter. Like that, this ultracentrifugation force is expressed in the units of Svedberg. In the unit, ultracentrifugal forces are expressed in the units of Svedberg. So at the level of ATS position, 80S point, the ribosomes are being floating and then being separated, and hence they are called as 80S ribosomes. Whereas in the eukaryotes, the prokaryote, this is the eukaryotes. In the prokaryotes, it is 70S. Again, we have learned that this ribosome is having two fractions. The fraction pink fraction blue. One is 60s and another is 40s. 60 plus 40, I should get 100. There is no mathematics in this. Please don't do it so. So now, this is the 60s fraction. This is 40s fraction. The hollow fraction, combined fraction, usually present in the inert state, in the, or rather resting state, we say not inert, resting state in the cytosol of eukaryotes is 80s. So that is the first step. The ribosome supposed to identify, supposed to be ready for a protein synthesis. And when it becoming ready, and the first step is that it separates into its units. One is 40s unit, another is 60s unit. They separates out. That is the first step. And in the second step of initiation, there is another ternary complex. A ternary complex will meet tRNA. tRNA. And always in the protein synthesis, any molecule protein synthesis, let it be any first one, but the cap one or still before the first one always comes what is called methionine tRNA. Methionine tRNA, met tRNA. A met tRNA, and there are what are called as here not only the mRNA, the rRNA, and the mRNA, tRNAs, and rRNAs. Not only the RNAs, along with RNAs, there are at least in the initiation process, there are about 10 protein molecules will participate. In the translational process, in the initiation step, there are minimum 10 protein molecules which will participate, and they will see that this process will go in the forward direction. And they are called as initiation factors. IF stands for initiation factors. The small e, mind you, the small e, not elongation, not elongation. The translation process is having activation of amino acid, initiation, elongation, termination, and post-translational processes. That is how they are divided. The steps are divided. The translation whole process made into various large big steps. Activation of amino acid step, and initiation process, elongation process, termination process, and post-translational process of the formed the protein. And these are the main steps of translation. And the first step is, which is a very large one among all, we are trying to discuss. While we are discussing what is the important to start, initiate, is requiring of the ribosome, a free ribosome, and this ribosome is 80s. That will be separated into 60s and 40s. Is the first sub step in the initiation step, largest initiation step. This is the sub one, and then that is there. Imagine not here, and then later on the next second one is the ternary complex, a triangular complex. What is that triangular complex? We will see. The methionine tRNA, always a methionine tRNA will be the first one to come in any of the initiation processes of translation. Along with that, the energy, I said, the GTP form. In the GTP form, an energy molecule will come, and a protein molecule of initiation, and that molecule is initiation factors. They are called as initiation factors. I said more than about 10 are there, and out of them, the important one is the named initiation factor 2. So it can be sufficient IF2, but E stands for eukaryotic, because these factors from eukaryote protein to that of the prokaryote proteins, there is a little difference, and hence the specifically EIF, eukaryotic initiation factor 2 GTP met tRNA, these three will be coming together in one side. And on the other side, the ribosome, one of the fraction of the eukaryotic ribosome, big one and small one, the small subfraction of ribosome, that is 40S ribosome. And then there is another protein, eukaryotic initiation factor 3 and eukaryotic initiation factor 1 or 1A, this is also called as. And these ones, they bind to the 40S ribosome. Initially, these two protein factors join with the 40S ribosome on one side, and in eukaryote initiation factor 2 GTP and the methionine tRNA in other side. So this is the methionine tRNA. So remaining all of them, this is the ribosome. The both of them put together, they insert or align the anticodon site into the 40S ribosome and fixes this along with the methionine. The tRNA is fixed into the 40S subunit in an aligned site. In a aligned site on the left side. Why only on the left side? Let us see a little bit later. There is a left side and there is a right side in this complex. There are two chambers, you say, left chamber and a right chamber. And now the whole thing now is called as 43S pre-initiation complex and pre-initiation complex. So it is being formed. And again, this is being acted upon by a factor 4, another protein, initiation factor. And along with that, an energy is needed. And that energy now in the form of ATP, And these two now invites the mRNA somewhere present in the cytosol into this complex, and also not only inviting the mRNA, always all mRNAs, when they are starting from the first amino acid. So that means that the first amino acid code will be there. Just before the first amino acid code of every protein, that means every mRNA, there always will be present the cap AUG, OG cap. And this is for methionine purpose. This codon always will be there. The cap codon always will be there. AUG codon always will be there for all the mRNAs just before the first code, which codes for the first amino acid. So what will happen? This energy will pull or push this particular mRNA this side or that side, and we'll see that exactly the UAG will be coming and aligning to the anticodon site UAC, and codon anticodon alignment does occur, and all these things, all this activity is being taken care by all these elongation factor 1, elongation factor 3, eukaryotic initiation factor, eukaryotic initiation factor 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4, all these ones along with the energy, and they make sure that the initiation is aligned and fixed. And once initiation is aligned, immediately the next large ribosome, and that is 60S ribosome subfraction need to come and aligned on this whole process. And this is done with the help of eukaryotic initiation factor 5, eukaryotic initiation factor 2, And now this 60S ribosome, and already the ATP has been taken in, and with the same energy, and then this whole thing is moving into it. And then you see now it is aligned in such a way, it is coupled in such a way that the anticodon will be situated into a chamber in the 60S, and that chamber name is P chamber, or otherwise called as P site, peptidyl site. And to the left of it, as I said, there is a vacant place, and in this vacant place is aligned with the A site, amino acyl site. So now there are two sites. The whole initiation complex is now complete. How? There is 60S ribosome, there is 40S ribosome. In the 40S ribosome, the mRNA is being aligned in the 5' to 3' direction. In the head side, there is the first codon. Just before the first codon, always present will be AUG, and this AUG is without any mistake is aligned with the anticodon UAC that is present on the MET tRNA, which is supposed to initiate the whole process, and that is been aligned in P site, peptidyl site, and now the initiation is ready. The initiation is ready, and then what is present in the first code in that mRNA? ACC. So now exactly for A there should be U, for C there should be G, for C there should be G. UGG anticodon containing tRNA should be invited, and then amino acyl site will accommodate and will forcibly accommodate into it along with its amino acid. So now this is the next one. Now here, when the 43S pre-initiation complex with the factor 4 is turned into 48S initiation complex along with the mRNA. So what is extra here? mRNA, and factor 4 is extra than 43S. And now this whole complex is pre-initiation, 48 initiation complex. And this is being added by on top by 60S ribosome. And there are factors: initiation factor 5, initiation factor 2, eukaryotic initiation factors. And then the whole complex now is 80S ribosome. This is now ready. This is AUG is always a start signal. Now see here. So ACC, just now we said UGG. And this UGG anticodon containing tRNA is specific for threonine. So now this protein which we are getting, the first amino acid or else amino terminal amino acid is going to be threonine. And how is the next process is going on? Then the tRNA is being called upon by this whole complex, and then aligned with the codon anticodon alignment, and then threonine is the amino acid that is being present. So now there is A site is complete, is occupied, and the P site is occupied. And now then what is going to happen? Again, the elongation factors now comes. So initiation factors, the role is complete. Now one by one elongation starts. What is that elongation means? Previously one amino acid is there, another amino acid has come, the first amino acid, that is the methionine, is there, and the threonine has come. Both of them should be bonded together. How can they be bonded for producing a protein? a peptidyl linkage. So there must be some enzyme which can connect them by peptidyl linkage. So that is a peptidyl transferase. Peptidyl transfer. So peptidyl enzyme, peptide transferase enzyme must be there. Enzymes are usually proteins. Then the scientists searched for a long time, but in vain. There was no directly the protein which is doing this process. But who is doing? Let us discuss. So you and both of them has come. Now come the factor, a protein called as elongation factor. See here, this is a big E. Previously, the one is small e, IF, that is eukaryotic initiation factor, the previous ones. But here it is called as the eukaryote, that word is being taken off because again it is E. So small e, big E is becoming is a complex one, and hence the scientists have gone for EF. So elongation factor 1. Again it needs energy. And this energy and this protein, and then together what they are doing, they are acting upon this and producing a peptidyl link. This link is not because of the elongation factor, but this elongation factor somehow mediating a RNA, ribosomal RNA fraction, along with that it producing a complex, protein RNA complex, but this rRNA is doing this function. Peptide bond formation is done by a part of rRNA, which is having enzymatic capability, peptidyl link forming capability, and hence this rRNA fraction is now called as a ribozyme. We can call as a ribozyme fraction. That is RNA having enzyme activity, ribozyme. So this is RNA actually is linking the one amino acid to another amino acid in the protein synthesis process. So one is, and then this code in the mRNA, the first code ACC has called for threonine and joined with methionine, and now the methionine carried tRNA is free, mind you. But where is it present? It is present in the peptidyl site. It is present in the peptidyl site. So now the energy also is being taken here in the previous step. That energy is still existing, present here. This energy, what it is going to do is, after peptidyl bond formation, this tRNA is pulled out. This tRNA of methionine is pulled out. And there is a potential space. And this space, you may call it as an E site or exit site. Exit site. The recent scientists are trying to put another site here, and that is they are calling it as potential E site, and that the tRNA goes to E site, and at the same time the whole complex is from the A site moves to the P site along with the whole complex. So the codon, the anticodon, the tRNA, threonine, methionine, the whole complex, or otherwise with the mRNA, this has been pushed. This is been pushed. So what will happen? OG goes out, the tRNA goes out of the methionine goes out, ACC along with this whole complex is coming into the peptidyl site. A site is vacant, and GGG is going to come align into the A site. Is coming in front of A site. So A site is potentially calls for another tRNA. Which tRNA it calls? Which tRNA it calls? Now GGG is there. This is the next one. So the first tRNA has come out into the cytoplasm. Methionine tRNA has come out. So the whole methionine and threonine dipeptide along with the threonine tRNA along with the anticodon, along with its codon has aligned into this site, and now GGG code has come in front of A site. A site is having capability to bring another amino acyl tRNA. Which amino acyl tRNA will come? It only which can come, which can base pair with this GGG. That means C. Okay. This is a, this is a, this. There is a small error in this. That is, this must be UGG. This must be UGG. Then only there can be ACC. ACC can occur. ACC can occur. And so read it. This is as U. So UGG. That means exactly you will get ACC. And the ACC containing glycine tRNA, anticodon ACC is glycine 1. So the glycine tRNA is being invited along with some amount of energy is entering into it. And then here the elongation factor also comes in. Elongation factor 2 is also coming in. And then what will happen? The glycine is there in the A site. So attachment of new amino acid to A site. The whole process is called as a translocation to the next codon. The old tRNA is detached. So the whole process is there. And for that purpose, elongation factor 1, elongation factor 2 are being participating in these processes. GTP and GDP, elongation factor 2 enters and then comes out later. And then, so now, like this, once this happened, and then what is going to happen? Like here, methionine to threonine, there is going to be, the next step is going to be, there is going to be peptidyl bond formation like this. Peptidyl bond formation like this. And then what is this happened? And then again, there is going to be translocation. This tRNA becomes empty, goes into the exit site. Out of the exit site is exits out. And then the whole process is being pushed along with the UGG to the peptidyl site. And the amino acyl site is again vacant. So this circling goes on and on till the last codon, which is a stop codon, comes. So that is so initiation, elongation steps are over. Now comes when to the amino acyl A site, opposite to it, UAG, UAA, these are the stop codons. They are the stop codons. When a stop codon comes opposite to the A site, now A site cannot invite any tRNA molecules having any tRNA molecules which are charged with amino acids. No more tRNAs can come over here. Instead, there comes the termination protein, R protein, factor, R factor. This comes here, and then that protein will join in this, or otherwise fills this A site. Once this A site is filled, and then the RF and the GTP, some energy is being given to this factor, and then what will happen is there is going to be release of the whole peptidyl, the tRNA, the adenine releases the amino acid which is being linked, and the whole chain is being removed. What is this chain? This is a polyamino acid, nothing but a protein. The protein. So this is a nascently released protein, and then this tRNA, last tRNA is a single without having any linkage with the protein, and then this energy, what will happen is going to dissociate the whole complex. The free RF comes out, the free RNA goes out, and this complex of 60S and 40S will be released out, and this particular last tRNA is released. So this is the process of termination. So now what has come out, a polyamino acid chain is a protein. And how long this continues? So long the mRNA is having codes on it. By any chance, these codes are altered, there is going to be tRNA is altered, and that amino acid is altered, linking, and then maybe in the any number of position, that particular position, instead of a particular amino acid, another amino acid comes. So that means primary conformation of protein is altered, and that's why the protein nature is altered, and there is going to be a disease, And after that, this protein, where is this is present? This is present in the endoplasmic reticulum attached ribosomes. The ribosomes usually functions nearer to the endoplasmic reticulum, smooth endoplasmic reticulums. And these smooth endoplasmic reticulums are folds of membranes. They immediately catch, wraps up, they packs these proteins, nascent proteins. These nascent proteins are wrapped, packed by those membranes. So now synthesis started, and polypeptide half length is synthesized, and then protein is completely synthesized. And in a single mRNA, there are 1, 2, 3 complexes. In a single RNA, there are 3 complexes at different levels of synthesis of protein. And this is present. This type of this type of activity, protein synthesis activity is possible only in the bacteria. So one mRNA at the same time at different levels can be processing 3 protein molecules at different levels. When it completes to the ending position part, this protein molecule will be released, and this will be slowly advancing towards the end. And here this is advancing, another one is starting here. Like that, more number of protein molecules can be fast synthesized in the bacteria compared to eukaryotes. The reason is this. So now the next step is post-translational process. Until this level, a protein molecule has come out, that nascent protein is again going to be changed in its primary structure and etc. at various levels. What are those processes, post-translational processes? One is the complete protein. For example, insulin is synthesized as pre-pro-insulin. This is the example of insulin. Insulin, when it is being synthesized nascently, it is synthesized as pre-pro-insulin. And there is an extra amino terminal. In between, there is a small piece of protein, non-functional one. Then a functional protein to be produced, there are certain changes, modifications. And all these modifications are, now you please note down, some of them are not there in these pictures. And please try to note down them. So as far as insulin is concerned, completely there. And some other modifications I am going to tell you. So here, amino terminal is cleaved out, the enzymatically cut out, scissored out. So you see, this end is taken out, and then this is called as now pre-pro became pro-insulin, and then pro-insulin, now again there is a non-functional part. But this part, you see, it is like something like C, and hence this is also called as C-peptide. This C-peptide is cut by these enzymes, which can cut within the protein molecule, and once it is being cut, the C-peptide is cut by the enzymes. Then both the enzymes are this C-peptide is been released out. So from pro-insulin, C-peptide goes out, and in these 2 polypeptide chains, there are 2 sites. There is alignment by, or otherwise linking by disulfide linkages. So intra-peptide linkages, intra-chain, A chain, and B chain. And there is intra-peptide linkages, disulfide linkages at 2 levels. And within A chain, you call it A chain and B chain. Within the A chain, there is a intra-chain disulfide linkage. So there is one intra-disulfide linkage in the A chain, and there is inter-disulfide 2 linkages in between A chain and B chain. And once this complete process happened, all this process in that smooth endoplasmic reticulum formed in the form of a Golgi apparatus. These are all being pushed to Golgi apparatus, and they are all being packed there. They are packed into small units. So this is a mature unit, mature insulin. So this is the cutting out, or otherwise lytic action of extra peptide chains, which are being present in the protein molecules. Then there is what is called as, you might have heard of glycosylated hemoglobin. So for the hemoglobins, in between with amino acids, there is a glycosidic linkage with glucose, and hence there is glycosylated hemoglobin. There is so. Please note down all these things. So post-translational modifications of proteins. First one is proteolytic cleavage, proteolysis by proteolytic enzymes, and they can cut on amino terminal end, exo, or sometimes carboxyl terminal end, also exo proteolytic activity. This is endoproteolytic activity. C-peptide is cut within in between this big peptide. A small portion is being taken out, like your intron is being removed there. Some small pieces are removed, like that. Here also is being removed after the synthesis of protein. So this is a proteolytic cleavage is one post-translational modification. Glycosylated hemoglobin is another example, where with the measurement of glycosylated hemoglobin, what are you doing? You are assessing the severity of the diabetes. Another one, the gamma carboxylation of what do you call the clotting factors. What is that post-translational modification doing vitamin K? Vitamin K in its active form, it will reach the proteins which are involved in the clotting mechanism and activates the protein molecules. How does it activate the protein molecule? By way of a extra carboxylation group addition to the glutamic acid residues. This is called as gamma position. It adds a carboxyl group, and hence it is called as gamma carboxylation. Gamma carboxylation of the clotting factors is done by the vitamin K, and this modification is also a post-translational modification. Some small glycoproteins, that means some carbohydrate moieties are being added. Like that, proteoglycan, protein moieties are added. These things also the extra or otherwise post-translational processes. So these are all post-translational processes. These are all also you have, mind you, post-transcriptional processes as well. And finally, ultimately, the last one is inhibitors of protein translation: tetracycline, erythromycin, puromycin, puromycin, cycloheximide, tetracyclines, and doxycyclines. And then these are all being used very frequently in your medical practice. And finally, the mechanism is here. It is like thyrocyl tRNA. The erythromycin and tetracyclines, they prevent the ribosomes to aggregate together. So various mechanisms are there. And this is how understanding the translation will giving us some fruits in the developing the antibiotics for the killing of the microbes. So this is about translation, post-translational modifications, and then finally the inhibitors of protein synthesis. Thank you. We shall continue later. Another one is diphtheria toxin. This inhibits protein biosynthesis in the mammalian systems. Diphtheria, there is a microbe which can affect the children. Corynebacterium diphtheria is a microbe, and it is because of inactivation of elongation factor and attachment of it. So this is the mechanism. Diphtheria produces a disease which used to kill the children in enormous numbers, and there is a vaccine is being synthesized, and it got a Nobel Prize. So with this, thank you very much. We will remind this, and we will continue later.